Are you looking for the best food vacuum sealers? In this video we will look at some of the best food vacuum sealers on the market. Before we get started with our video, we have included links in the description. So make sure you check those out to see which one is in your budget range. Starting at number 1. Anova Precision Vacuum Sealer Pro. The Anova Pro was my first foray into vacuum sealing several months ago, and I've kept it around and in surprisingly heavy rotation ever since. It's exceedingly simple to operate. You cut your desired bag size from the roll with the built-in cutter, place the edge of your bag onto the outermost liner, close the machine, and seal the bottom with the seal button. Then you put your food inside the bag, insert the open edge back into the chamber, and pick your next move. One button seals until it automatically senses all the air is gone, and another lets you pulse seal, only pushing the air out as you press a button so you have a bit more control, helpful for when there's liquids, like a marinade. There's also an option to double seal for extra insurance. Even when I shook a bag filled with tomato sauce, there was absolutely no leakage. The entire process only takes a couple of minutes. Strategist Senior Editor Winnie Yang bought the Anova after reading about how much I like it. I got a FoodSaver 8 years ago, the Game Saver model, and it was enormous and unwieldy and an eyesore. I never wanted to use it, she says. Something about the compactness and simple interface makes this feel more approachable. Even her 8-year-old can operate the machine. The fact that it's easy to use isn't a plus only for beginners like Yang and me. James Peisker, co-founder of Porter Road in Nashville, uses it for food storage and sous videing and assures it gets the job done. There aren't a lot of buttons or bells and whistles, he says. It's very straightforward, very user-friendly. He says he appreciates the accessible price point, too, a sentiment shared by Dave Yasuda, director of marketing at Snake River Farms. Yasuda is responsible for generating a lot of the photography his company puts out, meaning he sous vides a lot to ensure a consistent look of the plated pieces of pork and beef. In the office they have a big, expensive machine. But I often have to take this show on the road, he says. I've tried a lot of different ones, and sometimes they can be wimpy. This has a lot of suction. It's powerful. Still, it's the smallest model on this list, with the exception of Zwilling's handheld system that comes with accompanying containers, imperative for someone like me who lives in an apartment and doesn't have that much storage to give up to non-essential appliances. I'll also note that I think it looks sleek with its matte black exterior, and the parts truly feel well made. The less expensive models below come highly recommended, but don't have quite the same full package appeal. At number 2. Nesco VS02 Vacuum Sealer. The price of the Anova isn't bad, but I wanted to find a reliable machine for even less, especially given that some folks might be making a foray into vacuum sealing for the first time. So I turned to Ryan Dolliver, owner of Palmetto in Brooklyn, whose main priority when picking one out was affordability. I bought it for the bar, and I didn't know if it was going to work for us, and I didn't want to spend a bunch of money on equipment we might not have ended up using, he says. But it did indeed work, and he's been relying on it for about a year now. He turns to it primarily for infusing and preserving ingredients for cocktails, a practice where consistency is paramount, he says. Other methods for flavoring creams or syrups can suffer from variations in temperature and movement, but with vacuum sealing, recipes turn out the exact same every single time. The machine also allows him to keep seasonal produce fresh for months. Finally, because he lives down the street from his bar, he sometimes uses it to seal foods to store in his own freezer or to sous vide at home. Overall, it's a very low cost of entry and does what it says it does every time, he says. It's a consumer-grade product, but I use it in a professional setting, and it still works great. At number 3. Zwilling Fresh and Save Starter Set. The Zwilling Fresh and Save Starter Set is one that doesn't quite fit the mold of the others on this list. It's a handheld cylindrical pump, less than a foot tall, that works in conjunction with specific Zwilling bags and containers by sucking the air directly through valves on each receptacle. Indeed, it's like a cross between vacuum sealing machines and regular food storage containers, which is why you'll find it in my guide to those, too. It's a system that looks and feels a bit more approachable to the average cook, one of the reasons it comes eagerly recommended by recipe developer and cookbook author Jesse Sheehan and recipe developer and food blogger Nicole Modick. It's also much easier to store than a full machine. If I had a big one I wouldn't use it, Modick says. And the containers themselves are multi-purpose. I can use them without vacuum sealing if I know I'm going to eat something within a day or two. Both pros say the tool is incredibly easy to use and that you can see the air being sucked away in less than a minute. It really appeals to the make-ahead girl in me, Sheehan says. I love that you can prep ingredients, carrots, celery, whatever, and maybe you're not touching those chopped up veggies for a week, but they stay fresh. Modik says she's amazed how it makes berries, a highly perishable ingredient because of high moisture levels, last 2 weeks in the fridge. While she doesn't use the bags quite as often, Modik says she appreciates them for marinating meats in a fraction of the time it would take otherwise. And, she says, the charge lasts months. At number 4. FoodSaver FM 5200 Series 2-in-1 Vacuum Sealing System. FoodSaver is probably the most recognizable brand on this list to the average cook. It's certainly the first, and really even only, vacuum sealer brand I was aware of before delving into the topic. Still, I gave it this specific designation that it's best for canning because, according to the experts I spoke with, it's especially good for that function, and it's also more expensive and bulkier than my best overall pick. For butcher Kimberly Plath, the FoodSaver's canning attachment, which is nestled in a compartment at the top of the machine, has been helpful for making jam. It lets her seal the lid once she's filled the jar, and extend the life of the spread from just a couple of weeks to up to a few months. The machine is generally a solid and reliable one, too, even if you don't plan on using the canning attachment. I find it super helpful, Plath says. It's a space saver because you're taking all the air out. You can organize your fridge and freezer so much better. I'm a crazy coupon lady, and if I see a good deal on something at the grocery store, I can divide and then vacuum seal and save it for ages. Anthony Accardi, owner of Brooklyn's Transmitter Brewing, uses his FoodSaver 4 to 7 days a week, probably as much as my stove, he told me. It has long legs outside of straightforward sous vide use. I use it to make quick pickles, and for fermenting. It takes freezer burn out of the equation. You can marinate something for 10 minutes instead of overnight and get the same amount of flavor. I cure pastrami, bacon, and ham in it. As for the machine itself, Accardi calls it a well-designed unit. He particularly likes the view window, which helps to manage feeding the bag and to see what's going on inside. He's owned his for several years with, as he noted, very frequent use. I'm kind of surprised that it's lasted so long for a home unit, he says. I don't baby it.